All right, it is 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern, so we are going to go ahead and get started with our panel discussion today. Good morning, I am Justine. I am the Vice President of Marketing for AIM Transportation Solutions, and I'm going to be the moderator today for our panel on women in transportation. I am here with 7 very cool women. We did a practice session, and it was just awesome getting to spend time with these women and be in the energy that they all give off. Of these 7 cool women, probably none of them spent their childhood saying, I'm going to be in trucking when I grow up. And that's sad. And that's why we're here today. There's incredible opportunity that's being missed by so many women out there just because of biases about trade-based professions not being a career for them, for there not being room for them in the room or a seat for them at the table. There are full industries that don't exist on women's radar because of those same biases. From CEOs down the line, the transportation industry is seeing more and more women staff its ranks, and we're here today to celebrate that positive momentum and share how it's worked for us. I have 7 successful people here to talk about the why and how when it comes to being a woman choosing the trade and saying, I'm going to do something different, something that my peers aren't doing or they're not thinking about. I'm going to find an opportunity beyond what exists just in my line of vision. So they really sought out doing something different. One note, we are missing 2 of our panelists. We were supposed to be 9. In trucking, you got to roll with the punches. And when customers need deliveries, you have to adapt. Yesterday, I was able to catch up with one of our panelists, Amanda Austin D. Martinez, who wasn't able to make it today. And I recorded some of her answers to the questions we had for her, just because Amanda's out in the truck in the steel hauling capacity. So what she has to say is really powerful. So I am going to switch to video content a couple of times during the presentation just to hear from Amanda. So don't be alarmed when we do that. The session's going to go really quickly. There is so much to talk about, and we are recording. So just an FYI on that. If you have any questions, the Q&A function's at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to type in your questions there, and we'll either try and get to them at the end or try and get to them during the session. If we don't happen to get to a question because of time, we will be posting some of the follow-up content on AIM's social media networks, and we'll be sure to include the answers there. I'm going to send out a wrap-up email after the webinar later on this week with a recording to the session and contact information for some of our panelists. Leah Shaver has very generously offered to follow up with any questions that don't get answered. So we'll make sure that we get your questions answered if it's not in the session, basically. So I am going to start by letting each of our panelists introduce themselves. So I'll kind of just go down the line. Leah, we'll start with you. Leah, you're muted.
Yeah, I know. All right. Good morning. Thanks for having me back again this year. I'm really looking forward to today's discussion and an even broader panel. So very exciting, especially during Women's History Month. And Jess, you did another fantastic job knocking it out of the park. I'm Leah Shaver. I'm the president and CEO of the National Transportation Institute. I am coming to you live today from Naples, Florida. It's very warm, bringing a lot of sunshine. I'll send a lot of warmth your way if you are not in the Southeast. This is my 22nd year in trucking, and I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Leah. Chelsea, let's move to you next.
Sure. So my name is Chelsea Coleman. I work at Olympic Steel out of Bedford Heights, Ohio. I actually reside in Lexington, Kentucky, work remote from that team because I began my career at Olympic in our Mount Sterling, Kentucky facility. So I was lucky enough to stay here and not have to relocate when I took my corporate position. But I have worked in HR and safety since 2011, and so touched transportation in a couple different arenas, including a partnership with AIM that we've had for a long time as well. So learned a lot along the way.
Very nice. Next, we will move to Angela.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Angela Corpay, and I work for the Timken Steel Corporation in Canton, Ohio. I'm the manager of transportation and logistics, and I've been in transportation for 15 years, all at Timken Steel. So I'm excited to be on the panel and honored to be asked by AIM to be a participant.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela. We're honored to have you here. Next, I'm going to move to a fellow AIMer, Bethany.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Bethany Sanchez. I'm a regional field manager with AIM Integrated Logistics based out of our Chicagoland location. I have been with AIM for the past 17 years. In my position, I handle the day-to-day operation with the drivers and customers.
Thank you very much, Bethany. Next up, we have Lori Miller.
Good morning. My name is Lori Miller. I work at Wincor Windows and Doors. I've been in the window and door industry for 23 years, and very thankful for the opportunity to be on this panel, and very thankful for our partnership with AIM. They deliver about half of our product to our customers, and that relationship is very important to us.
Thank you, Lori. It's very important to us as well. So next we're going to move to Marilyn.
Good morning. I am Marilyn Server with 10th Street, and I am coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma today. I have been in the industry for 15 years. I started out as a driver recruiter at Mountain Truck Lines, where I really just fell in love with the game, and I'm excited to be here today with all you lovely ladies.
Thank you, Marilyn. We're excited you're here too. And last but not least, we have Mrs. Patty Durkin.
Hi, I'm Patty Durkin. I'm Chief Human Resource Officer for AIM. I've been here about 17 years in Youngstown, Ohio, born and raised here. The uniqueness of what I am doing is back before I graduated high school a few years ago, I was in transportation. I worked for a van line for about 5 years. It was a startup company, and I got into it because a person that my sister went to school with started the business, and they came up and asked my parents if I could come work there. And here I am back in AIM in 2023 and will retire from here. So I began and end my career in transportation.
Very nice, Patty. All right, finally, I'm going to share our introduction of Amanda, who was unable to join us, and that is right here.
Hello, my name is Amanda Austin DiMartinez. I've been with AIM for 7 years, or coming up on 7 years in June. I have been pretty much always in steel. I started at Phoenix Steel, an account in Cleveland, Ohio, right after my student training program, and I've been there the entire time. I do all steel to the Cleveland area, surrounding areas, Medina, a little bit to PA, and every once in a while to New York. And I'm also a heavy hauler now. Hello,
Oops. All right, so that was everyone's introduction. Thank you guys so much. And again, thank you all for being here. So now we are going to go ahead and jump right into the fun stuff. I'm going to start with some questions. So Leah, we'll start with you. How can we as an industry and a community of people connect women with jobs in the trades, jobs in the transportation industry, and specifically jobs driving trucks?
Boy, a big question and so many different ways. I'm going to say right away that, of course, I think we need to start in our community, in schools, at events, in parades with our friends, Girl Scouts. I did talk a lot about that last year, so I'm going to focus my answer on referrals, on mentorship, and on social media. Just to touch on referrals, again, a lot of that begins in our community and in our circles. And you also mentioned that many of us here sought a seat at the table. The idea, though, to do that often has to be introduced, right? I was introduced into trucking by my best friend's mother. I never, as you said, had considered a job in the industry, and certainly when she first suggested that I interview to be a recruiter at a trucking company, I didn't necessarily think of that as even being on my radar. So I think that in terms of referrals and introductions and just generating those ideas within our internal and external community is really crucial. Now, statistically at NTI, we find that companies with the highest percentages of women in trucks have women in leadership to admire. They have opportunities to mentor, to be mentored, They have women's ERGs that not only provide support, connection, recognition, but they celebrate accomplishments. They offer that peer support. It's not just work related. They mark birthdays, anniversaries, births, deaths, milestones. They work through personal and professional battles with encouragement, coaching, and care. And then, job specific mentorship is necessary, but I think it can be offered by men and women. But consider the unique perspective of a woman who has truly walked in your shoes, has the guidance to offer. So in my case, I'll say personally, I had a baby within the last year. And unfortunately, there are very few peers my age with infants in the home. So just think of if I had that extended mentorship, and certainly I have folks that are very good friends that do have kids and have been here. But in terms of the exact role in similar circumstances, mentorship and support is also key. And then lastly, I'll say social media. The largest generation that we would argue is actually working in the industry and has the strongest potential to work in the industry is Gen X. That's my generation. We engage on social media, we network, we revere professionalism, collaboration, we want to mentor, remember the mentorship idea, and we also value achievement and opportunity. But millennials are the largest group of folks that could actually, that are working in the workforce in general, not just in trucking. And they give loyalty to companies that provide career path rather than a job alone. They communicate in a variety of ways. They value recognition through advancement. So when you hear me talk about career path and working our way through the industry, a lot of that influence also pertains specifically to the success that we're going to have over the near future in recruiting millennials.
I think that was a really good answer. You touched on so many different highlights, and specifically the mentorship and seeing women in the higher level roles. Like, I've been fortunate that Patty has always been a higher level position at AIM, and I've been able to look to her for kind of that mentorship piece and just seeing a woman there. And exactly that, seeing it being possible is half the battle, in my opinion. Does anyone want to elaborate or add to what Leah had to say or have anything different to say? That was a pretty comprehensive answer. So next, I'm going to move to Chelsea. So Chelsea, you are very high up on the HR org chart at Olympic Steel, which is a giant in the steel arena, an AIM customer, and another industry that has not been traditionally women heavy. So what does your workforce look like now versus 10 years ago versus 20 years ago, as far as female staffing is concerned? And where do you see that trending?
Sure. So I've really seen our workforce change since I've been here in it, what I would call two different ways. Statistically speaking, we've added female board members, leadership positions. So kind of going back to what Leah said about starting at the top in those leadership positions, trickling down. And we've seen that in our production roles as well. It's kind of funny. I always brag about, we have one location that has a whole department on the production floor of fierce females that they have brought themselves one by one from their previous employer as referrals. And I think that really speaks a lot to the way our culture has changed from the top down. So our CEO has been really adamant about our DEI efforts in the last several years. I've always felt really supported in my roles at Olympic, but in the past few years, our leadership has really, I guess I would say, stepped up their game. So they've been putting in the work to change their mindsets. We have monthly lunch and learns where we have discussions about uncomfortable things like biases and gender norming. So it gets uncomfortable, but we've kind of taken the approach that if we're not uncomfortable, then we're not learning anything. So they've really been able to take that out to their teams and the production floors. And that's where I think we've really done more than a check the box type of program. So it's not been like a yearly webinar that we watch on DEI and women in the workforce and then move on. This is kind of a strategic program that we've implemented, and employees are really starting to see that, which I think has attributed to most of our growth as far as females go. So the second part of that question, I guess I've kind of already alluded to, but where are we headed? So I think it speaks volumes that we actually just finished a succession planning program nationwide. We just wrapped up yesterday, and it was really exciting for me to see over the years all the women that are now on those succession plans ready to fill really big shoes that are coming up at Olympic. So I think we're definitely trending in the right direction. It's an exciting time to be here. So
That does sound exciting. And you hit on something that I think is such a good point. Nothing grows in your comfort zone. So it's about pushing yourself, pushing each other out of the comfort zone to where you can grow.
Sure.
Does anyone want to add to anything Chelsea said? Again, you guys are giving these great answers that anything else on that? All right. So we have a very steel heavy panel, which is completely awesome. And I'm going to keep that positive momentum going. We have Angela Corpe, who's the manager of transportation and logistics at Timken Steel, another AIM customer. So Angela, you've been in operations for an impressive tenure. In your position, you manage a predominantly male staff, from my understanding. Is that right?
Half and half. The operations are predominantly male, and then my internal staff in the office are half and half, actually.
Okay.
3 women, 3 female, or 3 males. So.
Okay. So in operations, which is traditionally a more male heavy, male heavy division of a company, how do you overcome the challenges associated with being a woman in leadership overseeing a male staff?
So I feel like you definitely have to prove yourself a little harder than the average man who comes into an operations. Luckily in our company, our vice president of operations is a female. So, and she's been at Timken Steel her entire career. So she started out of college. And so that gives you a little bit of leverage, but you definitely have to prove that you are worthy of being there and that you understand what they're going through and that you are able to provide different aspects of the situation as being a female. And we are seeing more female drivers come in, and we also have more females loading trucks now. And I've noticed a definite trend for our union employees for all of operations, for all the steel making, that it's definitely going up. There are more women working in our plants than previously. And so that's exciting to see also. So it's just a matter of proving yourself and having that confidence. But like Chelsea said, if you're uncomfortable, you're probably not going to grow anyways. And so getting in that uncomfortable zone and being able to stand up for yourself and say, yes, this is how it's going to be done. So.
Absolutely. So, okay. We're going to stay in the steel industry for another minute, but we're going to kind of get a different perspective. So Amanda, who wasn't able to join us, she's one of AIM's drivers for our Phoenix Steel account. And Amanda is out there driving trucks with Conestogas, tarping down loads. And she did this through 2 pregnancies, which is absolutely incredible. So when I asked Amanda what that experience had been like for her, this is what she has to say. And you guys get to keep seeing my dogs because the video doesn't like to stay up for some reason. So let me make sure this is optimized. And here's Amanda's answer.
My experience has been kind of ups and downs, but a lot more ups than downs. It's been challenging, but I actually really loved going through my second pregnancy in the truck. My first one was very trying, and my second one, actually, I felt like I had so much support from AIM and from my the other drivers at Phoenix that it just made it so much smoother and just was such a positive experience.
Oops.
So just while you're getting that back, I just
things
want
a little bit differently, to use their body a little bit differently, because we're built differently, but it doesn't mean we're not able to do the same things. We just have to learn to use our muscles a little differently, maybe shift our weight when we're pushing the Conestoga closed or something like that. It's really learning the woman's body's advantages and working with those instead of limiting yourself to what is normally how a man would do the same job.
And I thought Amanda's perspective was a really good one. And she's just definitely a go out there and get it done kind of woman, which is really admirable. But doing that through 2 pregnancies just shows, we're only limited by ourselves mentally. The physical part, there isn't that limitation. It exists only in our mind. So it's about, and we keep coming back to the same theme of pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and, doing what you don't think is possible. And most of the time you end up you can do it. So I thought Amanda's answer was powerful there. Sorry, Leah.
There's actually something else that's really extraordinary about this story. She's been through 2 pregnancies, remained employed, worked, I would imagine, as long as she could. Let's all give homage. Okay, we need to meet this woman. Though she was not able to come today, we do need to get together with her. But we need to give her the credit that is due. That said, also to her employer, because a lot of folks get very concerned about the risk to a woman while pregnant in a truck, not to mention any physical aspect of her job. And then furthermore, the amount of leave that she needed, whether or not it was, how well it was accommodated. Obviously, it was accommodated enough that she wanted to get back in the truck and continue working for her employer. So again, an extraordinary story, and something that really we would point out does not exist in large amounts across the industry. Another reason that we do not grow in significant percentages as far as women in trucks. So truly, I need to meet this woman for sure.
Yeah, I will add a little bit to that, and I'll have a little bit part of my segment about some of the women in our company. Here's the other extraordinary part of that. There was no problem with it. There wasn't the question, the concern. She, like any other FMLA we deal with, that's how she dealt with it. And that's how her team dealt with it, both from the other drivers, because sometimes you'll get, somebody, another driver calling in and having a concern, or the dispatcher or regional, nothing. It was flawless. So I do commend her, that she had the same privilege that anyone else on FMLA, but handled it totally well. Also want to say something about what Angela was saying too, that's a little bit different for women, just a call it, not that it's wrong, but women go into their job, like, I want to succeed at my job, right? I'm in human resource. I want to succeed at my job. Women want to prove that they are. And that is one thing I would love to get rid of, but it's not that it's a negative. It's just, we do go about it differently, because generally, especially when we're a male dominated field, which for some reason I have my entire career, that it makes a difference. But kudos to you, Angela, for hanging in there and making it happen.
When you're told you're the secretary of the department, and you're like, no, actually I'm the manager. Like, so you do feel like you have to prove yourself a little more. And I've never had a doubt in my mind that I can do this job, but you have to get everybody else on board sometimes with that.
I thought what you said about women being like biologically different and catering to those differences, like as she was working, figuring out how to use her body in a different way, then I thought that was it. I guess I had never thought about that before. So I thought that was kind of an interesting perspective too.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback too. I agree with Leah. I want to meet her. Amazingly, I've gone through 2 pregnancies in trucking also, but not in the truck, right? But I do think, Jess, kind of what you said, and Patty, all of you ladies, is, she's getting it done. She's out there doing it. And I think that that's how we remove that stigma of you have to prove yourself, is like the more of us that are just getting the job done and, not asking for anything different or, we're just out there doing the work. I think it starts to change the mindset of the men and women in our industry that just say, here's a person, she's a manager, whether she's a woman or a man, she's the manager or she's the driver. And I think that it's women like Amanda, frankly, and Angela, all of us out there just doing that day after day, year after year, that look how much it's changed since all of us started over a decade ago. And even as she alluded to, the difference from her first pregnancy versus her second pregnancy in the truck. And so kudos to her and all of you for, changing it kind of one day at a time.
I couldn't agree with that more. Each of our contributions is one more tick in the box that just normalizes us kicking butt and, being not only an equal, but in some capacities, even, better, and just succeeding above and beyond any expectation. I did want to mention too, that Amanda last week just got recognized for being in our top 3 safest drivers in the company through our Netrodyne camera program. So she's definitely an all-star, and we were really bummed that she wasn't able to log in today, but I was grateful we got the video from her. So definitely some good perspective there. So thank you guys all for that. There are a lot of good contribution there. I'll kind of move on. So Lori Miller is the Director of Customer Experience from Windcore Windows, which is an awesome window manufacturer and another AIM customer. So Lori has a different vantage point than some of the other panelists, and I'm really interested to hear what she has to say about this. So what has been, Lori, your customer response to having women drivers on their routes?
Well, thank you for the question, Jess. Since I've been in the window and door industry, all of the transportation, the truck drivers have mainly been males. And over the past couple of years, we've seen the female presence delivering our product more and more. And we currently have 2 AIM drivers that are females that deliver for us on a weekly basis. And, you know, it may have been out of the ordinary for our customers to see a female pulling up a 53-foot tractor trailer and jumping out to help unload those windows. But they're becoming accustomed to it. It seems that when women are breaking into this industry more and more. And Windcore, we understand the importance of great service because that's what we pride ourselves on. We trust our drivers to handle our merchandise just as we would, as one of our team members would. The transportation and the drivers are the final stage of our product. And we understand that any hiccup in our process, anything that can happen will delay that leg of the process, which is, you know, the final leg. And when customers don't get their deliveries quite on time, and even though it may not be the driver's fault, they are the face of Windcore, and they represent us, and you know, women and men, you know, represent us well. So the presence of themselves and the way they handle the situations are directly reflected on Windcore. And having the female presence in this part of the Windcore process is a huge step for us. And I commend AIM for supporting their lady drivers just as they do their males. So we greatly appreciate the partnership.
Thank you, Lori. I really appreciate that shout out, and we appreciate the partnership with you too. And I think you really nailed it with saying, you know, the face of the driver is the face of, you know, your company so many times for these customers, and putting a good face forward, the importance of it. And I think that it, you know, shows great strives by AIM and Windcore to be, you know, modern and have female drivers out there and kind of, you know, go away from the norms and show that we're going to do bigger things. So I'm glad we've been able to find that success together in our partnership. And I thought that was a good answer. Does anyone else have any perspective on how they feel that like a female driver functions from the customer service end, or how that's went? And I don't know if Bethany, you've seen that or have any transparency there. Oh, Marilyn.
Well, I was just going to add, you know, we have a lot of data around applications and who's applying for jobs in the market. And so we are talking about more women, and we see that statistically. So now, you know, 14% of driver applications are female drivers, and that's almost double from where it used to be just a couple of years ago. And Leah alluded to Generation X. I'm a millennial, the oldest of them, right? But I'm a millennial. And so that's, you know, my jam, talking about the different generations. And I think one of the things that's cool about the driver population getting younger is that it will naturally become more diverse, you know, just as, you know, we're kind of raising our daughters, you know, to see to do anything they can be anything they want to be. You know, I feel like that certainly maybe not as much with millennials, but with iGens who are now in the workforce, they really kind of grew up that way. And so I do think that that's one of the positive things about a younger workforce, is that there's going to be more women that are going to jump up and say, hey, I want to do this job, because they don't have some of the limitations kind of that we had growing up, right? The visually. So it's cool that we're seeing it in the statistics, but you know, you guys that are out there living it in the field, you're seeing it in your day-to-day work, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marilyn, we must be pretty close to exactly the same age. And I couldn't agree more that what you visually see in culture and in the working environment now is so different from what we saw in our younger working years. And that change has definitely eased the transition into a female heavy driving staff. So that's really interesting about the 14%, because I think, and I might be wrong. The statistic is it 3% of truck drivers are female? Leah, no.
So I think Ellen, the last presentation I saw from her, which was like a few weeks ago, she had 13%.
13. Okay, so so we're trending upward. Very good. Leah, was there anything you wanted to add on that?
No, I think I think it's well said, but since you asked me, I would just say that I don't know that demographics naturally change. I still think that we have to pave the way in some of the areas like we've demonstrated here. And as an example, as I was referring, millennials communicate extremely different than Gen X or baby boomers. And we generally have baby boomers that are mentoring or training millennials. And so they are polar opposites and really do not connect well. And we also see extraordinary exits in the industry with new drivers, which we would imagine might be relatively younger. So to Marilyn's point, I mean, of course, we have hopes that with a younger workforce, we're going to see more diversity as well. But I still believe that this doesn't just happen naturally. If the image of the driver, persists at being the older white male, then younger, more diverse drivers do not necessarily imagine themselves behind the wheel of your truck or your truck.
I think you're spot on, Leah, that we need to continue to have that visual present in the eye line of younger women, or not just younger women, any women that are entering the workforce or pivoting or deciding upon a career. So absolutely. And I think that's why what we're doing here today is important too. Well, Marilyn, while I have you talking, I'm going to keep you talking. So Marilyn is a transportation advisor at 10th Street, which is AIM's ATS provider. We work closely with them and they're fantastic. So Marilyn, what do you see companies doing right from the perspective of attracting female positions or female candidates into operations positions?
Yeah, so I think kind of piggybacking on what Leah just said of things not happening naturally is I think what we've started to see over the last couple of years and really coming out of COVID is we've seen companies start to pay more attention to how they're attracting different types of talent into all different types of roles. But I do believe it has to start at the top. And so I think having women leadership is imperative, but I also believe having, strong men that are supporting strong women is just as equally important, right? And so I think you are seeing that more and more pushed from the top down from men and women in companies. And so they're featuring women in their ads, whether that's for, driver managers on the driver's side or, drivers or, diesel mechanics, on the different side of the business. And so you're starting to see more women reflected. You're starting to see DE&I programs that are featured in ads, that they're highlighted, and it's highlighted as benefits, the employer resource groups for women, or just the different clubs, even if it's not a formal, resource group, but they're getting together. They might have a women's Facebook group, where different women are getting together. Just all of those types of things you're starting to see happen, pop up in trucking companies that it just didn't exist before. Even, again, just a couple of years ago, those things were not as prevalent. And so I think that is a movement that has a lot of momentum.
Absolutely. So second question, safety is one of the main concerns for women going into the truck driving profession. And what tools have been put in place to improve driver safety so that we have women feel safer, and how do carriers become safer so women are more apt to choose them?
Yeah, it's really interesting because safety is important for all, but women kind of name safety more often as something that is more important to them. Also training. So what kind of safety training are they being offered? And so again, you see companies diversifying their training process to say, what do these different groups of people need, and what is important to women, and even sometimes changing company policies, where they don't have to sleep in the truck if they can stay in a hotel or they can park at different times. FMCSA also recently launched the Women in Trucking Advisory Board, to address really issues just like that. And we have the parking bill, that's going through Congress right now to make parking safer and to bring attention to that. And so not only are trucking companies saying, hey, this is important, but FMCSA is saying this is important. All of the, ATA, TCA, and really the government as well that controls a lot of those things is saying, hey, we need to make this a safer profession for women. And again, just like with the DE&I initiatives, I think there's a lot of momentum around that. And I think it's only going to get greater. The momentum is only going to keep pushing more and more change.
Absolutely. Leah, do you have anything you would like to add to that? I know that's kind of one of your fortes.
Yeah, I need to chime in. Marilyn mentioned policy, and there's global industry policy that can get in the way. And so certainly they've also enacted other policy to try to combat those things. But there's a lot of company policies that really get in our way. So a couple of things to think about is that when we track in our student and trainer pay survey, there are just more women that want to become drivers than women to train them, because as we're discussing here, this is still a growing population. But having policies where we consider the gender of the trainer and the trainee is something huge to consider. And when we can't accommodate a same gender training policy, then an anti-violence and harassment training is really necessary. But it's not just the training, it's also the policy and then the enforcement. There's a few things that, like Patty, I used to sit in the human resources role, and there are components that I never even considered while working at a carrier that I really learned a lot about through Women in Trucking and just meeting more women that were in trucks, like keyed trucks. This is something across the industry that ultimately is a security problem for all drivers, not just women, but especially women. And you would not believe the extraordinary measures that women take at night if they are sleeping in the truck. So like key trucks is a huge concern. Pet policies, again, pets can be really destructive to equipment, but Jess, your background photos and not only on your computer, but I see over your shoulder, pets are really important to people. And while destructive to equipment, they can also be absolutely vital to safety and to the emotional security of someone that's traveling alone. And then the other thing that I think I'll touch on later as you open the floor is also just in terms of operations and internal management tracks at companies, we have to consider the needs on an individual basis for the job.
Absolutely. On all your points there, I think they're all very good ones. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add onto safety, which is a very important topic, and one that, as everyone from AIM on the panel knows, that is at the paramount of our culture. And I think it's important for it to be that way for everyone's culture. So I'm going to kind of shift gears for a minute and move to Bethany. So Bethany Sanchez, she's a regional field manager at AIM. And I'm not going to say who told me this, but a little bird told me that Bethany consistently gets the highest management reviews in our employee surveys of any managers. So she's very well received, and she manages a predominantly male staff, just like kind of what we talked to Angela about. So I was wondering from Bethany, how have you found success as a woman managing a predominantly male staff in operations?
Well, first of all, thank you. That is a huge compliment. I believe women still face a variety of challenges working in the transportation industry. One challenge being stereotypes or an old school way of thinking about females in transportation. I feel the main reason I have been successful in my position is the support from our management team at AIM. Without their mentoring, I would not have the vast knowledge in the industry that I do have. In my experience, kind of echoing off of what Angela was saying about having to prove yourself as a female, when it comes to my experience with driver management, is that drivers will test or question your knowledge and experience. But once you show them your accountability, you gain their trust. At that point, you have established a good work relationship where you're able to hold each other accountable.
I think absolutely. And, seeing through AIM, kind of the mentorship and the leadership, and having Patty in that seat, which kind of transitions us nicely into our next question, which I'm going to ask to Patty. So, Patty, you personally helped me on my own career path. How do you see companies creating a culture where women can succeed?
Well, in like Chelsea, we've seen a lot of changes, and I have to tell you, in all the years I've been in human resource, this is one of those careers, if you don't like change, this is not really a good field for you. So there's constantly changes. So I do want to talk about the culture. Before I will talk specifically about Bethany. By far, she gets really good survey answers, and she is respected. But she also has had her issues that we've had to deal with in the field. And, obviously she's still here because we dealt with them well, but it's always an ongoing thing that we have to deal with. So she has had her challenges, more so than you, Jess, where you really just came in as an administrative person and now you're the vice president. But you also worked at it with your degree and networked within the company, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But culture just in general for women, and it is difficult. Forget just hiring is expensive, and we want to make sure that we retain people. So there's a lot of things that we've done with retention and culture. And if you just think about it, the golden rule, let's just make it so easy. Just treat people how you want to be treated. But now we have a lot of people that we have to work with in order to make that happen. So I'm sure nobody sets out their strategy to be, let's make everybody miserable, not paying them a lot of money. And if it is, I'm really glad you're joined on this call. But culture is a strategy because we want to make things happen, whether it's just open communication, who the people are going to talk to, how they're going to talk to them. Females, however, in the industry, we're socializing generally with men. Like you said, with the trainers, there's so few in the industry that it's very hard to have that happen. So make sure if it's not a position, that it is somebody that respects that. And most of the drivers, I find, love their profession. And there are people that just don't want to train. Don't put them with anyone, really. But, to put them with a female is not a good thing to do. Women in this industry, the CDL drivers have to be 21 to get their CDL. We do have some student programs. So they may be like 23 by the time we see a woman join in transportation. So I do agree with Leah you do have to start earlier. We do have that disadvantage of that high school and maybe college, technical part of the audience that we need to get. It may be late. But here's why I think it's so interesting, because our average age here is like 46. Women's age is younger. But I think we're getting a more mature person because we're not getting them that young. And I think it is an awesome second career because they get paid a lot of money. But the safety and the schedules are always going to be something that we have to look at. Amanda, again, there's several people, everybody is different how they handle things. Your 2 pregnancies, having to be in a truck and be out there. But it is the other men that do bring some of the ideas to us. So we do have to make sure that we're just still mentoring with them, but a good trainer can't agree with you more. Another thing that we really didn't touch on a whole lot, but there's 2 things that we have that are outstanding. And that's people coming back to AIM, and that in our healthy or robust, whatever word you want to use, referral program. Because people refer who they want to work with. They're not going to refer some person, for $2,000 and dread the fact that they ever have to work with them. So like people usually refer people. So make sure your referral program is healthy. We are really glad that people return to us. I feel that our culture creates that. And if you look at this networking, of course, we put this together. So we have customers and like Marilyn as our vendor. And we get a lot of great responses to who we are. AIM is a very welcoming company. We make people feel, that they belong. So I have got to meet a few of you personally, which is a good thing. The other thing that 10th Street does is Staymetrics does their surveys. They now owe them, so we can integrate a little bit of that, get a lot of that statistical data, but look at it. So you hear the word engage a lot. We want to get people engaged in different things. People quit their bosses. So, if your boss is one of those people that aren't treating females right, we either groom them or maybe they're not part of our strategy. So it is part of development. And the other reason I like development and growth for people is that's where women get promoted. That's where you take an administrative person and see them as a vice president someday. Carly, my manager, who has been with me for like 14, 15 years, just like 2 years after I got here, same thing. I mean, she starts as a manager and now as a VP. So those are the kind of things, that continual development and training. And then lastly, my pitch is, social media. And of course, this is Jess's forte. This has gotten her where she is today. But we've always seen marketing as marketing and sales. And so, getting it branded and everything, that was always their thing. I was always wanted recruiting to be part of that. And we finally have made it part of that. In social media, people see who you are on social media. We put a lot up there. Amanda's picture will be up there with, being in the top 3, the highest safety performing people. But they're going to come into your company because they're going to choose you. And more people are looking at that. They're choosing you because of what you can present. What is your culture? And your social media is so important. Your community activities that you do, employee appreciation lunches, safety, because for us, safety is so important for everyone. So the type of company, most of the time they will pick over money. Now, everyone's always going to complain about money. It's on every one of our surveys. However, if you present your company, just remember statistically, and it's getting over 50% all the time, is that they're going to choose you by your culture. So your social media is so important. And like Leah mentioned, I was going to jump in then and say it, and I wanted to hold off on saying it, but it is so important that you put it out there because that population is looking at it. But don't forget, it is a good second career for women. And we have to keep telling them how much money they can make in these fields. So that's it for me for today. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you, Patty. And I just, I thought there was a lot of things that I found in Patty's answers to overlap with what I do in my day-to-day. And I do think it's about painting that picture of your employee brand through social media, through things like your Indeed and your Glassdoor reviews. Think about when you're looking for a job, where are you looking? And if you have been looking in recent years, or where are the candidates that you're trying to hire? Where are they looking? They're definitely Googling you, and what they see at the other end of that Google search matters. So while I think you need to paint an accurate portrait of your company and your culture, I think you also need to make sure that the different demographic groups that exist within your company exist on the internet and are present in your employer brand. So, but well said on Patty on that. So I want to open up the floor here to really anyone that wants to grab this and kind of, as we're winding up, just kind of get your guys's feel on this. So many women out there, young women, older women, single moms, they're struggling to make ends meet. How do we shift our company cultures? And this kind of is what we were just talking about, but let's keep talking about it, to one where women feel welcome to seek a trade-specific career such as driver or diesel technician. And women out there getting a traditional education, how do we show them that the internship in operations or in transportation or in steel is the right one? How do we make it attractive for them?
So I had a couple comments on that, if you don't mind. I think that it has to be really intentional, and that's something that we've really tried to do at Olympic. So making adjustments to policies or procedures that maybe 10, 15 years ago, our answer was no, absolutely, we can't do that. Our business won't survive. But we, over the last couple of years, have really tried to be intentional about adjusting things, especially for working mothers. So like we have an employee I just worked with last week, their daycare doesn't open till a certain time. So they were notoriously late for work. So just adjusting their schedule to allow that to happen. And I know sometimes in transportation, we have to meet customer needs and that kind of thing. But in the steel industry, we've also done some part-time work where they're dropping their children off at school. One of our locations has had a lot of success with this. They come, they work a 4 or 5 hour shift, then they go pick up their children, and they've been able to get in the steel industry, do some work that they really enjoy, a benefit to us too, because it's helping us get product out the door, but really being intentional about adjusting your policies and procedures and reviewing them where you need to, so that the internal customers are seeing that culture change too and reaping the benefits of those changes. So I guess that's what I would have to add there. You're on mute, Jess.
Absolutely. Sorry. Anything you wanted to add to that, Leah, or anyone?
Yeah. And I think that what you just said is really extraordinary. We've been having this conversation a lot at companies in a variety of different ways, but it's not just women. Younger folks in general, folks that are of the age that they might have children, there's just not a ton of accommodation for that stage of life in the workplace, and the variety of different ways or definitions of what workplace means to folks at that age. But the bottom line is we can look at that on an individual basis, as I had mentioned earlier, and really say, does this person have the qualities that we need in this role today, tomorrow? What are we really trying to accomplish with this individual in their career and at our company? And how can we accommodate the stage of life that they're in, which is very temporary, and in order to help them continue to traverse the track that we have in mind for them. So in terms of your question, though, a couple of things, you mentioned seeking a trade specific career path. And, I would say, first of all, that trucking does not have to be a second career choice for women or otherwise. Today, trucking is a second, third, or fourth career option. And Patty mentioned it's because of the minimum age requirement for interstate commerce. But we can create and define career tracks for folks that don't have driving as the first stop and management later. Why not start 18-year-olds in the shop and then in the truck? And you're going to say, because we need as many people in the shop or more as we need in the trucks. Well, so do private fleets that have warehousing and are doing, a career path where they have essentially a dock-to driver program. They have more needs in the warehouse, but they are still training folks within the warehouse and then traversing into a paid CDL apprenticeship so that that can be the second job option while still building a career with their first choice option. So, I'll maintain and say quite loudly that we need to make this industry a first career. And then just in general, making trades an option, paid family leave that doesn't end someone's career if they're pregnant or in the fourth trimester, childcare support, which was mentioned today, that if weekends are required for the job or for promotional tracks, then childcare is also necessary. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of safety policies, training, and then enforcement that's really necessary, as well as how we talk about folks in the job. We kind of say he a lot. And as you know, there are not only men in these roles anymore. So how we visualize the folks that are in our careers, but also how we speak about them, how we reference them, and then of course, how we promote them and traverse the path that they're going to have with us.
Leah, you don't work in the Northeast. We say guys all the time. Every time. I literally went into a meeting and was doing my presentation on the he, she, they, don't say that. I said, all right, guys, See you later.
Yeah,
Like-
folks. I've trained, you got to train yourself. I've trained myself
It
to
is
say
so-
folks,
So
I hear ya.
difficult. So
We
a
just
lot
say
of-
y'all in
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
there. See,
Y'all,
just I mean, pick the region. Pick the region. We got to have a word that's inclusive, right?
y'all will
Or-
work.
Go for Pittsburgh and just give them the yins.
Yeah.
Covers everything. So
Don't
but-
give them yins.
But no, I mean, those are such great points. And Leah, absolutely, the vocabulary, if it's always he, then the she doesn't feel seen. So I think that's fantastic. Is there anything else anyone wants to add on that? Marilyn, you look like you're contemplating.
I always have something to add, right? I think that all the things that we've said are good today and a lot of foundations. And I think what for companies out there, and it's like, just start doing something, that what Patty and Chelsea both said, it doesn't happen by accident. And so creating a culture of diversity and inclusion and representation, right, is important and kind of paramount. That's really the first things first from the top down. And so I think in the social media, all of those things. And so I think what I would say is do something, is just start somewhere, do something, and those small things add up and they make a difference. And we're all, proof of that. And I think also going back to Amanda and Jess, kind of what you said is like, we are oftentimes women, we're our own barriers, is Amanda just said, hey, I can do this. And she works for a great company, that supported her and did that. And I've had that experience. Leah, you've had, I pushed my stroller through trade show floors. And, I think no matter what your job is just do it. And I think women having the courage to do so and having great employers out there like AIM, that are willing to let them do that is really impactful. And so the more employers we can get doing that, the more women are going to feel empowered to kind of just do it.
Marilyn, I think what you said about just doing something is critical. I can remember several years ago when we were tasked with kind of starting a whole DEI effort. We sat down in a boardroom, and I think by the end of it, we had like 111 action items that we want. And it was like, you got to do it piece by piece. You got to prioritize and just start with the little things and the rest will fall in place. But there's no way you can tackle it all at one time. I think that's critical to understand when you kind of start that culture change journey.
And look at the extraordinary outcomes at your company alone, Chelsea, just by saying we don't have to tackle it all immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, taking those manageable bites. So we are just about out of time. So I want to thank each of our panelists. You guys have all been awesome, and what a group to be a part of. It just feels, I can feel the energy. So it's fantastic. Thank you for all of our attendees for joining us. I'm a strong believer in the idea of defining something is giving it power. And we, as women in transportation, we're defining ourselves here today through conversations like this one and other ones similar. So thank you guys for lending me your power and giving us as a group this power. So thank you so much for your time. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your day and a fantastic week. And I'll make these resources available to everyone. Follow AIM's social media and you can grab them anytime. So, and everyone else's social media on the panel as well. So thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.